What's going on, everybody? This week on Bottom of the Bill, we have Matt Muehling, the guitar player from the Kill Tony band, which is my favorite podcast. Matt Muehling is an amazing guitar player, writer, composer, and a member of the Kill Tony band. You can look at all that stuff on Spotify. It's one of the biggest live podcasts in the country. We're super excited to have him on. We're real big fans of that show, but also him as well. He's a really nice guy. He's got tons of stuff going on. So, without further ado, here is Matt Muehling. Enjoy the episode, guys.
This is Bottom of the Bill.
All right, well, welcome everybody to another edition of Bottom of the Bill. We got Matt Muehling on from the Kill Tony band and plenty of other projects that he's got going over in Austin, Texas. This is our second time doing this. And I'm stoked to at least it's another excuse to get to hang out and talk shit again, man. I really had fun the first time. It's a shame that nobody will get to hear that conversation, but I'm excited to get to hang and do this again.
Yeah, same. I felt exactly the same way. I was like, man, that's a drag, but we get to do it again. It was really fun last time, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. So you'll notice that Billy's not here with me today. He has taken some time off from the podcasting thing, so it's just gonna be you and I chatting today. I'm sure Chris and Gene will be interjecting as well.
All right, sweet.
So
is he cool? Is everything good?
Oh yeah, he's good, man. We're good. Everyone's good. There's it's all super amicable. He's just got priorities right now, and just needs. He was moving and all kinds of shit going on. He has to get himself right, with his personal stuff right now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
self-care.
It's such a big thing, man. I tell people all the time as we get older, like the 20s, your 20s, I feel like are all about grinding and just taking whatever opportunity you can, and I think it's good to do that. It's important to do that because you get to learn what works and what doesn't work, and you get to read through the lines on the bullshit and what's real and what's not real. Then in your 30s, I feel like it's kind of time you start to think about working smarter and not harder. So you're still driven and young enough to be to have the energy to work and work hard. But I think that you have a little bit more awareness as to what the right opportunities to work hard for are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. A buddy of mine and I were talking about it. You really get good at looking for those red flags and how to say okay, well this opportunity is probably for somebody else.
Yes.
This isn't gonna do as much for me as they would have you believe.
Totally. What are some I'm curious because I feel like every musician's got a bit of a different perspective on this. Are there certain red flags that you look for in those scenarios? If somebody comes to you with an opportunity and you're maybe you say yes or you're kind of questioning it, what is a thing or one of the things that you'll look for that's going to make you say no?
Man, at the risk of offending some of my friends from back in the day, a big one that's very Austin specific around, for me is just when South by Southwest rolls around.
Right.
Just about anything that has the term unofficial showcase attached to it.
Yep.
Is or just when they mention it being an unaffiliated simultaneous festival.
So what about that makes you want to not engage in those? Is it the pay or is it just the way that it's run?
Kind of all of the above in my experience. The whole emphasis with South by Southwest is it's the ultimate Austin exposure gig, and there's definitely some credit to that hype. And with the unofficial showcases, the side festivals and all that stuff, you're kind of lured in with the same carrot, but it's none of the people who can help your career are going to those things.
Right.
You kind of just have to decide all right, well, am I you got to manage your expectations. Okay, this isn't going to blow me up, but it will be in front of a great crowd. And if that's what I'm there for, then go, by all means, go ahead and do it. But yeah, I don't know, after gigging in this city for 15 years, it's I'm going to be in front of another crowd. I can get that when and wherever I want. So in order for me to kind of maintain my my self-care, it's like maybe I don't want to go out and battle the festival and the traffic and all that just for like $100 and like a fun night.
Right.
I can have a fun night at home with my wife and kids.
Totally, man. I had not a similar thing, but kind of in the same vein of that recently, where it was a few months back, but like the show was recent, where I got asked to play guitar for somebody. It was like an opening slot for like this bigger artist who's getting a lot of name recognition right now, and it was for like an after party for something. And I was like, okay, I mean that could be cool. And the guy that's headlining the show is somebody that is a friend of ours, but also is like really kind of infiltrated the pop market, and I would like to maybe make that connection a little bit more. But then I was like, okay, the person that hit me up, it was like the band that I know, it was going to be like maybe not the right opportunity for me to showcase what I do with the people that I was going to be playing with, if that makes sense. Try to put it lightly.
Yeah.
And then it was on top of that, it was like they offered me like $100 or something, and I was like, well, I'm gonna need more money than that, and here's my rate, and if you can match that, then I'm down. I'll make the the best out of the opportunity. And then they weren't gonna do that, so I turned it down. But it was like things like that where you start to think like, okay, sometimes if the money is right, then you can kind of finagle something and make it work the best that you can. But if the opportunity is such where you feel like it might do your career a disservice in the long run, because of like just external factors, and then the pay is also not there, that's an opportunity where I will definitely lose. I'll take the hit on the money and the opportunity, just because I don't think that's the right scenario that's gonna help leverage my career at all. All the opportunities that are handed to you, or like that you have, like when you're younger, you think like, oh man, this is a thing that could like really make or break it. But then you do those things enough and you're like, no, it's not. And there's definitely gonna be more of them. So like, this isn't the right time to try and like make that contact or whatever it might be, just play that show or whatever. There's just, I don't know. It's back to the whole thing. It's like the self-care thing is important as you get older, and I think that you become more okay with just turning things down in order to get that, so you can be more efficient in things that you do want to do.
Yeah. I mean, at least I try to. Man, it's hard to like shake off some of that old mentality.
Sure.
It's like I don't even know who they is, but like the career itself will really bake in this idea that like every missed opportunity is like another nail in your coffin.
That's what they tell. That's what like the industry tells you the whole time when you're younger, right? It's like, I remember working with an agent when I was first getting started. He was more of like a mentor. Wasn't really like my agent, but he was an agent that was kind of like just helping me understand things. And it was the same kind of thing where it was like, you gotta take every opportunity. You gotta, anything, because you never know what's gonna happen. If you miss it, then that's it. Like it's a one shot that you get. It's just people in the industry talk about, like, they use that language all the time, and it's like there's some truth to that depending on like where you are. But like, I mean, I don't know. I don't I think there's gonna be more than one opportunity, because it's like just the average, like the law of averages. Like there's no way it's just gonna be one opportunity. And I remember just getting that idea, just mashed into my head. So I was like hitting every single jam session, and I was like, that I was working a full-time job, and I was like, trying to, and I'm booking gigs and writing songs and doing all this shit. I'm just like, this is too much. At some point, I have to focus on something, and I can't just be grinding all the time. This makes no sense, Do you feel that way a lot as well?
Oh, absolutely. Well, especially now, trying to navigate this whole balance between artist and sideman, where the more sideman work you do, the less time you have to present yourself as an artist.
Totally.
I mean, like the whole industry is hard to navigate, but I feel like it's an especially precarious balance for people trying to do this whole like artist and sideman thing. trying to figure out how to get the art that you're making pay money. Like it's taken me forever to figure out. I still haven't figured it out, you know? And eventually I want it to like switch over to that. It's like I make money because I make art, not because I play guitar for somebody. There's also just a whole lot of projects in town, especially right now in Austin, that like I'm stoked to be a part of. And then there's also just a whole bunch of people that are calling because they're like, hey, like everyone around here is saying that like the guy for the job is Matt Muehling. And it's like, yeah, you know, what do I do? I mean, I need money over here, and I definitely want to work with these projects. The hang and the music is completely incredible. And then like, there's my project kind of like sitting there going like, hey, you know, you remember me? Every time I text the other two people in my band, I'm like, we need to rehearse. It's been a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have shows coming up.
And your music is not easy too, man. Like there was like a story that I saw recently that I commented on, where I think it was like a new tune that you guys were working out or something, and just I mean it's super like proggy fusion esque, and it's just like I can't imagine going into one of those gigs cold or even with like a rehearsal, you know?
Yeah, it's terrifying. I could spend a lot of time talking about that actually, because that's one of the struggles that we run into with that band. But at some point, this band was like under another name, and it had it had one different member, and then there was like a big falling out, and the band went on without me and the violinist for a little while, and then the bass player for like the old version moved to Dallas to study law, and the drummer and I had like a really big reconciliation, and we were like, okay, let's try it again. And I wanted it to be a bigger ensemble this time around. I wanted to get a couple of friends of mine to come in and play bass and keys, and then keep the drums, violin, and guitar thing. And the bass player was just like, yeah, I'm like, you guys are trying to rehearse every week and play all this crazy hard music, and we're not making any money. Like, I'm not down.
Yeah.
And he just, like, he came out right out the gate and said it, and I respect that a lot. And then the keyboard player was a guy that, like, I just trust to ask him to, like, take on a multi-role in the band. It's like, well, would you be comfortable playing key bass and keys? And he said, yeah. And it immediately created like a new sound to the music that like I was very much enamored with. And then a few months down the line, he's like, look, this is taking up a lot of my bandwidth, and I've got to step down. Like, I've got my own artistry that I want to nurture. And you know, I understood, and he's gone, and now I'm left with this real conundrum that we've got like guitar, violin, and drums, and we have this like insanely like multi-layered complex music that we're trying to pull off, and we're not making any money, so I can't like hire somebody to fill in the hole left behind. You know, what am I going to do? And we had a showcase that I could afford to pay someone to play, and I got one of my buddies to come in and play keys and key bass on it. And the first thing he said at the first rehearsal was like, man, if y'all had tracks, this would be crazy. And I was like, huh. And he does a lot of production, and I was like, would you be down to like help make the tracks? And he said yes, but then he got busy and he couldn't do it. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna make tracks myself. And I dove into Ableton, because like I'm not like, I'm a Ableton noob, you know.
Yeah.
Like through and through. And so I dove into this program for like 4 months and designed these tracks and built these songs up to work as a 3-piece with tracks. And we get to, you know, a month out from the first gig, and I'm like, man, I feel pretty good about the way these sound, but I also know there's like an industry standard for the way like your sessions have to look for running tracks at a show, so that like your CPU operates at highest efficiency, and you know, the engineer can mix it well, and like there's just a whole other side of it that like I don't really know about. And I asked a buddy of mine to just kind of help in, be our playback engineer and give me some pointers, on how to like organize my sessions and make them look clean and operate at maximum efficiency. All this work, and the first show was still just like the hardest thing any of us has ever done. We converted this crazy band into like a track band. So now we need the tracks and the click and everything to like work in our ears. We're operating with like minimal ideal amount of equipment.
Right.
Like only the drummers got ears, and we're doing this whole thing with monitors and
oh man.
And it was just like it was the most stressful gig of like all of our lives, like collectively and individually. It was just like, this is the hardest gig ever. And kind of going back to what you said, like I'd hate to like try and run that gig cold. One thing I didn't really think about is that like we've rehearsed this music and played really hard shows enough times that like we can bat like about an 89 on our worst day. And I listened back to some of the videos and I was like, man, everything sounds really good. So my big takeaway was, okay, we figured out how to execute. Even with the new variable of tracks, we can hit a great show on just about any given day. What I really need to figure out now is how to make it fun again.
Right.
Like how to set everything up so that like we can play this show and enjoy playing this show.
It sounds like there's got to be like a comfortability thing, right? Like maybe like an adapting to the situation, and then once you guys get like comfortable with or find a setup that works, and then you run the show 4 or 5 times, and then you get through those, and then you're like, yeah, we're comfortable now. We know what to do, and then they become fun. I feel like,
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, all of that stuff, and we were able to get it together like pretty quick. By the very next show, everybody felt really good. Like we finished the show, and it was just like a gigantic collective exhale. Just like,
yeah,
like okay, we can keep going. This isn't going to be like jumping without a parachute literally every time we play a show. It's like we can get it to where it feels good again.
Right. That's like the hardest thing, I think, man, is like for any musician or artist that's like trying to put something out or trying to like execute something. It's just doing it a couple of times and then knowing that you're capable of doing it. And then you obviously have to make adjustments as you go and figure out where you can do better and all that stuff. But I think once it's executed a couple of times, then there's a comfort level there. It's like it's just that initial stepping out of your comfort zone. It's like literally any scenario. Like if you're a musician and you're walking, like you've never played a jazz gig and it's your first one, like maybe you know the tunes but you've never been in this scenario, then you do it and you're super nervous, but you do it and you execute, then you know that you can do it again and again and again. Before you know it, it's just like, okay, well, I can do this now. I know that I can do this. And it sounds like you're at a similar crossing point with this project now where you've executed and you're like, okay, perfect. Like I know that we can do this, and we here where the adjustments need to be made. Once they're made, then we can really like have fun with this,
Yeah. Yeah, especially if the music you're trying to execute is like needlessly complicated. Like I love really complex music, but like every time I get on the next gig where I'm really like aiming high, I'm like, man, why do I keep doing this to myself? I had a buddy hire me for like a 90s country night, just like a cover gig basically.
Yeah.
And we were in the green room at a different gig and we were talking about it and we were just rattling off tunes, and he started talking about this tune by the Chicks called Sin Wagon, which is like a really up-tempo kind of barn burner, very bluegrass and influenced country tune, and it's like a lot of fun to play. I was like, oh yeah, man, Sin Wagon's dope. Yeah, that and Hot Wired by Brent Mason. He was like, dude, we can play it. And I was like, okay. He goes, let's play it. And I was like, all right. I haven't actually learned Hot Wired. I just like the song. So then like about a month out, I'm like downloading the track and I start like transcribing it and learning how to map it out on the fretboard. And again, I'm just like, man, how did I do this to myself again? This is like just a couple of weeks after the gig with my band that I was talking about that was so hard. And I'm like, man, I'm right back in it. And there's like a thing when you're swinging for the fences where you just have to realize, like, man, that first gig, it's just not going to go the way you want it to.
Totally.
It's just not going to. And I worked on Hot Wired for like 2 weeks straight, just like trying to get it up to tempo and making sure actually to even like push the tempo a little higher so that when we get excited on stage and we're going faster than the record, I'll be okay. And still, like the head in on Hot Wired, it was just like, this is a huge wipeout right now in front of everybody on a 90s country night. Like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Here I am again.
Well, did you...
Everybody, I'm the guy that tries really hard and fails publicly. It's fun.
Hey, guess what? So are the rest of us here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I too have been victimized by Hotwire. It's okay.
That tune is brutal. But yeah, after that gig, I'm just like, every time I sit down to play it, I'm like, man, I can't wait till the next one. I'm gonna fucking murder this tune.
Yeah, I've had that happen so many times, man. There's this not quite as technically difficult, but just it's difficult in its own right. And I was learning it like a really long time ago. It was like a few years back. There's this Keb Mo tune called "As Soon as I Get Paid." Chris knows it well as well. But there's this intro that he does, and it's really just, it's not anything harmonically complicated. It's just kind of rhythmically, like, but it's a very traditional kind of like finger picking blues kind of thing. But the phrasing is what's so like weird about it, So I was learning it for like this blues night that I used to do like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. And so I learned the intro, and I was like, the rest of the song is kind of basically more or less like a 1-4-5. And, but the intro is what I wanted to really nail. And so I learned it, and I'm like, practicing it. And then we get to the gig, and we go to do the tune, and I just totally botched the intro. I mean, like, it wasn't even like close. I didn't hit, hardly any notes I was supposed to hit. And it's just one of those moments where you're like, fuck, man, I knew this before I came in to the gig. And just being on stage, seeing people there, like, it's just all that you start to get in your head about things. And then, because that you have that one, there's no like practicing. There's no like, let me start over if I fuck it up. It's just, you have to hit it or you don't. And then that's what you just created for the people to experience right there, was a total catastrophe. That's a lot, So that's a lot to it's a lot of weight to carry, Yeah,
it's heavy. People will come up, no matter, what I love is like, no matter what, after the show, people are going to come up to you and go like, man, that was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of like the thing where you're like, yeah, all right. And thank you for the compliment. I always, we had this conversation recently with somebody. You always love the compliment from anybody, but there's sometimes like a difference when the compliment comes from like a fellow musician, because that I'll speak for myself. Like, I'm listening for the mistakes, right? So if a musician comes up to me and say, hey man, that was killer, especially what you did on this part, then it's like, thank you very much. That means a lot. Versus somebody who's not a musician that's telling me it's great. You still appreciate the compliment, but you appreciate it from the perspective of like, right, but I know that you didn't hear this thing that I know that I fucked up on. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah. You don't want to say it means less, but it's a different kind of thing that you have to accept, I think.
Yeah. Well, I love, actually the verbiage there, that it's different. And I've really had to learn how to lean into that difference, how to remind myself that like the broad majority of your audience is non-musicians, and that, all we ever do is critique stuff. Like, we've developed that muscle.
Yeah.
So like, if I get a compliment from a musician, like, yeah, that's fantastic. But like, at the end of a show, I'm not looking for that. And especially as an artist, it's like, I really hope that this music impacted people. And if the people I've never met before, who I can tell after like 5 words have no idea how executing music works, if they came up to me and said that was amazing, I really enjoyed that, then like that's actually the most important thing. And I need to like accept that and engage them in conversation and not give them the whole like, oh man, well I felt like shit about it, but thank you for saying so. It's like, no dude, just like tell them thank you, ask them what their name is,
right,
and maybe talk about something for a second, you know, and realize that like the big picture, the job that you set out to do when you like compose the music and put it together with your band, that landed.
Exactly. You know? And that's the thing too, man. It's like when you degrade, or not degrade, but like when you have to let people know about your shortcomings after they give you a compliment, it kind of diminishes their taste, right? It's like they tell you like, oh man, that was amazing, like thank you for what you did tonight, and then you're like, oh, I felt like shit about that, and then it's like, okay, well, thank you for letting me know that my taste in music is shit then, you know?
Right. It's like you just, like as a total stranger, it's just like, oh, fuck me, right? Like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Trying to tell you it was good, asshole.
Exactly. And it's like as musicians and artists, like, you know what you're trying to do, and maybe you didn't hold yourself to your standard that night, but that's totally irrelevant, because at the end of the day, your career is nothing without the people that come to support it. So if they loved what you did, then get out of your fucking head, accept the compliment, and do better next time if you feel like you need to. That's like somebody put that to me like in similar words very early on in my career, because they were musicians complimenting my playing that night when they were the musicians that I was on stage with, and I was like, no, I feel like I played like shit tonight, man. They were like, hey, don't do that. Right, stop doing that. Like, take the fucking compliment, man. We all know what we heard tonight,
right.
but we also know that you had an off night or whatever it might be. We all know what you're capable of. I'm giving you the compliment, just take it, And then I was like, yeah, that was when I was 22 years old. 11 years later, I still have that thing in my head, that they told me. Those two older blues guys told me that night. It's still in the back of my fucking head every single day,
Yeah, it's good. It's good shit.
Yeah, man. There was an interview. Suzanne, I can't remember her name. She was in that band Honey Honey, and she does lots of with Gary Clark Jr. and stuff. Anyways, her and Gary Clark Jr. were on Joe Rogan's podcast one time. And Joe Rogan's always talking about how big of a fan of Gary Clark he is. He's like the greatest guitar player of all time, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, okay, as musicians, we know. But also it's like, that's somebody who likes that kind of music, and he might be in that genre or whatever it might be. Anyways, he was telling that to Gary Clark Jr., and Gary Clark had like the perfect response, I thought, to that, because he's a musician and he knows what the reality is, right? So like, he's like, well, I do what I do. And I was like, that's like the best response to that, because like when somebody tells you that you're the best at something, and like that that's a wild thing to say, like of course not, right? Like
it's so ludicrous.
Yeah, it's like what a crazy thing to say. But then, but how do you accept that without sounding like you're putting down everybody else who they're negating, right? Because like as a musician, you think about that, but then also not want to diminish their taste and their perspective on it. Like maybe you hit them a certain kind of way that nobody else does, and that's just what it is. So I thought his response to that was so perfect. It was like, well, I do what I do. I was like, yeah. that's it. Like that is it. Nobody else does what you do. You do what you do.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. I'm definitely stealing that.
Yeah. I've stolen it plenty of times. I've had people tell me like things, that are what I would consider to be equally as ludicrous. And I'm just like, oh, I do what I do. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So you mentioned having like a family. How do you balance, as you're a very busy guy, you write, you run a band, you're also like a hired gun. And I like the humble brag that you did earlier about being like the best guy in Austin for the gig. So like, how do you manage all that with a family, man?
Man, I don't know if I do. I mean, one thing that we do here, because my wife's a professional musician too.
Oh wow!
And so She's the violinist in my
Oh,
band.
no shit. That's super cool.
And so there are definitely nights when it's like, yeah, mom and dad are going to be gone, either working together. Like sometimes we do like wedding gig stuff as a duo, or as individuals. She'll have a gig and I'll have a gig, different spots. It's just this whole thing like, you know, kids, you're going to be on your own tonight. I'm sorry. So we do this thing. We've got a specific day each month where we'll all just get together, and that day, that whole day is just a family hang. We call it Family Fun Day. Super creative title.
Yeah, I was about
right?
to say, yeah. For a bunch of musicians, that was real creative, bro.
Yeah. But yeah, and we'll plan a whole series of activities. We'll put all the activities on like a random wheel, and then we'll get in the car and just like spin the wheel, like where are we going first, and then just keep spinning it until all the choices are exhausted, and then come home and hang, maybe watch movies, maybe have dinner, and just try to like, you know, have a day that's just for us. You know, my wife and I are real intentional about like having a coffee run together in the mornings, and then when we get to a point where we feel disconnected, like trying to plan something like beyond the coffee run, you know, like there's daily stuff, but you also need like, you need more, right? It can't be like, there's got to be something to be excited about.
Of course,
you know?
yeah.
And so if it's just like, yeah, well, this is what we do every day, eventually that's going to start to feel like routine and not quite so special, even though it is. Like the daily effort matters a whole lot, but also being very intentional about planning something special. The kids and I will, you know, pick a show or pick a movie. Olive and I, she's my youngest, we just went and saw Quantum Mania together. Like she's the only one in the house that's as big a Marvel nerd as I am. So like when the next one comes out, it's like, yeah, if, you know, whatever mom and Izzy want to do is fine. We're going to see that movie together. Y'all can get on the train or stay at home doing whatever it is y'all do while we have fun.
That's so cool, though, man. I love that.
Izzy and I will try to come up with a show to be into, you know, together for as long as it runs, you know.
Right. So
right now we're doing The Last of Us, and it's pretty dope.
So I
never played the game, but I know a lot about it, and it's like they did a really good job. Sorry, I bulldozed you twice now.
No, it's okay. I was trying to do a fucking joke, and I was gonna like. So I was gonna say. So you mentioned Izzy being your favorite daughter, and how do you feel about the other one?
Oh shit! Did I say she was my favorite?
No. Just you have like that. You guys go to the movies together. You like the Marvel thing together. So that's
right. Yeah, Izzy.
Nice one.
Yeah,
jokes are way funnier when you explain
Yeah,
them.
that's a good one.
I
Got
couldn't-
any more jokes in there.
I couldn't help myself. Sorry.
I can't wait for your Kill
No, it's
Tony
good.
set.
I mean, yeah, I work with Kill Tony, so it's like it's par for the course.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? He just said you suck.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yes.
So we talked about that drummer James Atkins, the drum off
from Orlando. Yeah.
badass. Yeah. And I guess last time we interviewed, so this is new news. James had a project that he brought to Austin. One of the reasons he wanted to be in Austin is to develop his artistry. So him and his guitarist roommate and this bass player friend of theirs, they all moved from Orlando together. And then the bass player, for whatever reason, like stopped in Dallas. He moved to Dallas, and then the other two moved to Austin.
Weird.
Yeah, I don't.
This far
Not
and
sure
no
what that was all
further.
about.
Probably found a girl or something over there.
Well, he's married.
Oh.
But
You know how musicians work.
yeah, it's weird. But they kept the project together, and so they started doing shows in Austin as a trio. And John Dees and I have like a regular thing after the Kill Tony show on Monday nights at this club called the Gallery. And so James would start coming out, and his guitarist buddy would start coming out. And so we'd all end up like sitting in on stuff together and playing a lot together. And James was really digging it. So he just started like enveloping more musicians in John and I's circle, including John and me and this other keyboard player named Dane. And his group was called Sketch, and then so like just for fun in the group thread between the 6 of us, I named the thread Super Sketch. And James just decided to like make that the group. He turned it from a trio into this like big 6-man like super group consisting of all these, like these guys are Dane and John, you know these guys are heavy hitters. And then the guys that are already in his group, just like really badass musicians. So the whole Kill Tony squad quickly like caught wind of it, and now they come out to like all of our shows. And so one night, Dane, the other keyboardist, he's kind of got the least amount of exposure to that crew of people.
Oh,
so
boy.
he walked up with his gear, and I can't remember if he said it or if one of the other guys that knows both of them said it, but someone was just like, yo, David Lucas, roast this guy. And
No.
I think it was their first time meeting, and David just has like immediate ammunition.
Yeah.
Like that guy's guns are always loaded.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what he said about Dane, but Dane was talking about it after the gig. He was like, bro, you know, it's one thing to see it on YouTube, you know, a couple of times. It's another thing to just like experience it. Like that dude is always ready, and he's always deadly.
Yeah.
And it's wild to be in that circle and like be surrounded by people who can like just like take you apart with a sentence.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
I was concerned because I'm glad that you said that he was familiar with the dynamic already, though, because like, man, if he had walked up and it was like, David, just roast this guy, and he had no idea who these people were, that would be,
Yeah.
I mean, that's liable for a real bad situation to happen. Because man,
Yeah.
that dude cuts deep.
Dude, he's deadly. It's crazy.
Has he ever gotten you before?
No, I don't. Man, there have been a couple of times where I've been like, "Yo, do me," but I think like he's also, you know, it's kind of like the do a backflip thing. You know, it's like as soon as someone finds out you can do a backflip, then they're just gonna yell "do a backflip" at you every time they see you.
Right.
And after a while, it just gets old. It's like, no, this is a thing that I do professionally. Like, don't turn it into a parlor trick. And I don't know how David's articulated it, but I've heard him talk about it a few times, and you know, kind of gathered as much that it's like, yeah, you don't get these roasts for free,
Right.
You know,
Well,
unless it's special. So like, don't just demand that I do a backflip for you randomly.
well, it's like as a musician, it's similar, right? If you like when people want you like at an event or something or a gathering where you're just kind of hanging out as a civilian, and they want you to play something. It's like, hey, do you know this song? Can you play it? It's like, yeah. I mean, I didn't really want to do that right now. You know, I know.
Right.
It's like you know, there's music is not a hobby for me. It's a passion for me, and that passion is a spectrum, right? It's like the spectrum of love and hate. That's and if that thing that you do encompasses that whole spectrum, that to me is what a passion is, right? And right now, I am relatively indifferent about playing music, and I don't want to do it. So
Right.
it's not like I just want to sit here and play songs all the time. And thank you for asking me. I would love to play a song for you. It's like, no, man.
Right.
Like I'm. Times have changed. We're not court jesters anymore. We're like
Right.
we're professionals with dignity, and we can choose how and when we do what we do.
Yeah,
And,
like sometimes we're just existing, you know. I'm not a fucking jukebox.
Exactly. I'm sure it's the same with comedians. I listen to a ton of comedians' podcasts, and like that whole thing. It's like when people meet them and they're just like, "Hey, you're a funny guy. Tell a joke. You're a comedian. Tell a joke." It's like, bro, just how insulting is that?
Right.
All right, guys, this episode's brought to you by Best Buds CBD Store. If you're like me, maybe THC isn't always the right high for you, or maybe the legal status of THC has you a bit hesitant to indulge. So at Best Bud CBD store, they have an array of CBD and Delta 8 THC products. These guys truly care about their service, so everything is meticulously sourced and prepared to deliver a top-notch product and experience. If you head to their website, you'll find all kinds of educational information regarding Delta THC and CBD. Not to mention, if you use promo code BotB, that's BOTB pod, you'll save 10% on your order. This is not a one-time deal. If you use promo code BotB, every time you place an order with Best Buds, it will give you 10% off. That's in perpetuity, forever. So head over to bestbudscbdstore.com and start saving on all of your CBD and Delta 8 products. Enjoy, guys. Are you a fan of dog parks? Well, how about drinking? Because at Kanine Social, you can quite literally do both. Located in Jacksonville's Riverside neighborhood, Kanine Social offers both indoor and outdoor dog parks with plenty of space for your fur babies to socialize and exercise. Kanine Social also has a wide array of local and regionally brewed craft beers on tap, as well as kombucha, nitro coffee, and wine if beer just isn't your thing, like me. They also offer unparalleled dog training programs with the best in-class trainers of Jet Set University and luxury boarding services as well. Be sure to head to their website at caninesocial.com to find out all the info you need to be sure you and your pup have the best experience available at Kanine Social. All right, guys, I want to take a second to talk to you about my favorite music store in Jacksonville. This is Mockshop Music Exchange. It's a place for true gearheads. They work with some of the most boutique pedal companies on the market, which for someone like me is super important. I love supporting smaller brands, but I also like being able to create my own unique sound. And with the variety of boutique brands these guys work with, it's almost certain you'll find that sound. They not only carry an assortment of pedals, amps, and guitars, they also offer top-notch gear repair with everyone's favorite tech, Mikey. These guys have come through for me in a pinch more than on a few occasions, and I won't spend my money anywhere else. So make sure you guys check out Mockshop Music Exchange in the Murray Hill neighborhood of Jacksonville. You will not regret it. Super knowledgeable, amazing gear. Check it out and enjoy the experience. I know we kind of talked about it last time. We definitely talked about it last time, but nobody else gets to hear it. So I'd like to kind of go dive back into how you got involved with the Kill Tony band and all those guys.
Oh, yeah. So if I remember correctly, Joe Rogan moved here first.
Right.
And then he invited the other guys. And it was during pandemic, so LA was like locked all the way down. So yeah, being able to go somewhere and do your thing with less restrictions, I'm sure sounded very appealing. And so Tony and Red Band came shortly after Joe, after Joe just like inviting them and telling them like Austin's pretty great. I remember when Joe got here, he made it a point to like go and check out Gary like pretty soon after he got here. There was like this whole thing where I like saw several posts on Instagram where it was just like, yeah, Joe Rogan came out, So when, and Joe obviously talks about being a fan of Gary's, so I'm sure they like spent some time talking and all that. But when Tony got here, his band didn't come with him. And I think because he was connected to Gary's band through Joe, he probably reached out. I can only guess. But someone reached out to John to like put the band together, and John grabbed Michael Gonzalez to play percussion, and a local guy named Jimmy Blazer to play bass, and a local drummer, Michael Hale. And so it was this like keys, bass, drums, and percussion thing. And not very long into that, the drummer and the bass player both got COVID, and they were out 1 week. John and I had a residency with another group right up until the pandemic hit and like hit full swing and shut everything down. So I feel lucky that like I was still kind of on John's mind, because I was one of the guys that he called to sub, and D Madness was also on that residency with us, and D Madness was the other guy that he called to sub. And then that was it. They never changed the lineup after that. The gig wasn't paid in the beginning,
right?
And I had never heard the podcast, so I had no idea what I was getting into. And John only gave like tidbits of information. He's just like, yo, you want to do this thing with me? It's a comedy podcast. I got D Madness and Michael Gonzalez. It's going to be pretty fun. And, we're at the tail end of the pandemic, so I haven't played with John in like the better part of a year, if not more than a year. And I was just like down, I was like, yes, that sounds like a lot of fun. And then I can't remember if he told me like, we're not getting paid, but it's cool. Or if it was like after the first gig where he was like, do you want to come back next week? And I was like, yeah, we're getting paid? Like, what's going on? And he was like, no, but they're looking for sponsors for the band. And those guys from CM Smokehouse had catered the thing. So like at the end of the show, I'm just up in the green room with like famous people and really killing food. And the gig was fun and everyone's funny. And I was like, man, this is a really interesting thing to be a part of. And I'm not doing anything else on Monday nights. So like, I'm going to stick around for a little bit. And then to find out that they were looking for sponsors and trying to get us paid, I was like, man, if this is going to become a paid thing, then like, yeah, count me in. I'll stick around.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even go check out the YouTube right away.
That's so funny.
So I was just like, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's crazy that he can just pull these like super famous people in here. I don't know what's going on there. And then, I get on YouTube and it's like, like what? Hundreds of thousands of views in a week?
Right.
Like, what is this thing? What am I doing here? And then, yeah, they didn't get Screwball right away. They got this vodka company for a minute. And, that didn't work out. And then Tony got canceled and I was like, well,
right.
it's fun while it lasted, all 6 months or whatever it was before that happened. And then Vulcan picked him up and we got a new sponsor. And because of that, we got a raise. And that brings us to where we are now. And, man, it's just getting bigger and bigger all the time. It's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, you guys are moving to Rogan's Club soon, right? As far as the last episode goes, I don't know if you guys are there by now, but because you guys are 2 weeks ahead, right?
Yeah, we're 2 weeks ahead. We're not in Rogan's Club yet. Last I heard, they were supposed to be ready by about this time, but they're still not, and I haven't heard an update recently.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know how far out do y'all release?
We're about 2 weeks
how
ahead.
How far after the fact? Okay.
We're about 2 weeks ahead as well on our end, yeah.
I feel comfortable telling you this because I don't want like the guest from last night to get out before the show gets out.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, last night it was Roseanne.
Oh, no shit.
And it's just like, man, like, because of this gig, I've met Ron White, I've met Joe Rogan, I've met Steve-O,
It's so fucking wild, man.
This is just a wild thing to be a part of. I had to really like establish some protocols for when the guests show up, like a few months back, because I had, within the past couple of years, just become like hip to Tom Papa, thanks to like Netflix Instagram account.
He's great,
and
man.
just like, he won me over like right out of the gate. Like the first post I saw with him, I was just like, this guy is hilarious. And so I became a fan pretty immediately. And then one night he walks in the green room, we don't find out who the guests are going to be until like they show up. Tom Papa walks in and I looked him right in the face and I just said, oh shit.
Oh my God.
And like, I just like, it was one of those moments where like the first thing that went through my head was like, bro, keep it together. Like this is just another human being. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I just don't have a lot of experience just like running into people who not only are like pretty well known throughout the world, but also like people that I like, the stuff that they do.
Right.
You know, it's one thing when it's just like, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you know, it's whoever the fuck, and it's like, yeah, they're super famous, like that's cool. But it's another thing when it's like, man, I really like what this person does, and now they're standing right in front of me. And you know, yeah, I said, oh shit, and then I was like, okay, you can't do that. And I was like, you know, I just like tried to like, you know, like reset and then just shake his hand and tell him nice to meet you. But yeah, I left that night going like, okay, dude, like, what can you do to get your mind right? Because like this can't happen anymore. Basically, I tried to have a conversation with Joe when we were still at Anton's, and it just like it didn't go well at all.
Yeah.
I had like nothing to say, and I interrupted his conversation with Brian, and it was just about as awkward as it could possibly be. And at the end of it, Joe was like, "Hey Brian, like it's been good talking to you. I gotta go." He just like cut me off and left.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay, so I'm really bad at doing the hang with like super famous people. I need to work on this."
Yeah.
And so now, like, yeah, I can like shake hands and say hello without making a complete ass of myself. But I still haven't figured out how to like talk to anybody. It's just
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's like it's hard to desensitize yourself to that, man, because it's like these are people that have huge influence in their circles and beyond, and especially when you're a fan of what they do. So like their work has impacted you in some kind of way, and you just want to make a good impression. So that pressure, again, it's like playing a gig, you know. It's like, especially like a hard one for the first time, where you're just like, I just have to like, I just want to make the best impression that I can, because this is like my first, you know, this is the first impression. So like, and then you put that pressure on yourself, and then you just bomb, you know. And it's like, and that's a bad feeling, and for sure. So I guess it's just, as anything else, you just become more exposed to it, I guess, right? And you start to kind of get desensitized, and before you know it, like you're able to like hang out with these people and not feel like you're like the other around them, you know?
Right. Well, and not only that, but like the only thing I really do is like kind of play music and practice a lot and like hang out with my wife and kids. Like I don't keep up with anything.
Right.
You know, like I can't I can't even talk about the Super Bowl coherently with anybody. I don't even know which two teams were there, you know. And so, and like Joe and Tony, like those guys keep up with all kinds of stuff. And we don't exactly align politically.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So that's out too, you know. So I'm just like, you know what? Like when those guys when they show up, like I'm just gonna shut up. And I've kind of used the excuse of like we're playing music for your entrance, you know, like what song would you like to hear, if any, as my one go-to for just like any level of like engagement with a given guest. And some guests are cooler than others, but I still haven't like really got it dialed in. And all of my mistakes keep happening with Tom Papa, and it's just rough because he's the one that I think I like the most.
Yeah.
But he was talking to Red Band, and I walked up and I was like, "Hey man, sorry to interrupt. I just, I wanted to know like if there's a song that you'd like to hear." You know, I can't even remember what song we played last time, and I think that's where I fucked up. Is like I should have reviewed, or something. But I just asked him if there was a song that he wanted to hear when he came up. And he was like, "Oh, Dealer's Choice." And I was like, all right. And he goes, "Put some thought into it."
That's so funny.
And I was like, all right, like that's a good roast. But obviously he's kind of annoyed with the way I handled this situation. So like I'm still trying to dial it in.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's weird from their perspective too, I would imagine, right? Because like these are people that that ate shit for years, right? And like they came up and probably were in similar situations to you, where they felt like they fell short in front of an idol or a peer or whatever it might be, and now have reached a level of success and have all these people that don't know how to act around them, or they're kissing their ass or whatever, and to them they're just like, don't be fucking weird, bro. I'm a fucking guy. I'm a dude. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So, it's but it's hard, man. I met Johnny Depp when I was a kid, or not a kid, when I was like 19 or whatever, 17.
Wow.
Because he's from South Florida, and he played in the circuit down there. And my dad and my mom were very good friends with him. My dad still to this day knows him. So at that time, it was like they were doing some kind of reunion show for the South Florida music scene of like the 70s and 80s. So this like big booking agent had passed away, so they were doing like a big thing for her. This is like back in 2006 or something. And so they flew in Johnny to do the thing because he was playing in a band called The Kids, and they were pretty big in South Florida at that time before he moved to LA. And so obviously the club it was like a 2,000 cap club. It got packed out because they knew Johnny Depp was coming to it. And I got to, play. It was like one of my first gigs ever. I got to like play on that stage. It was unnecessary and unreal. But anyways, he was hanging out in the on this balcony, kind of overlooking the club, and I knew he was up there, so I walked up, and he was very nice to me or whatever because he knows I'm my dad's kid. But I had no idea what to say to the guy. I was just like, yeah, so you like being back here or whatever. I don't know. Like, it's just trying to like get a conversation in, and yeah. So I get that feeling where you're just like. I don't remember what his response was. I think he was trying to be nice to me. Again, he knew the relationship, but it was just one of those things where you're like, fuck, man, I wish I had more to say in this moment. Like, but then again, like, if you're going to approach any stranger for like no particular reason, like, what do you say in that moment? And they're really, unless you're like just super socially, like, adequate, you don't really know. And I'm somebody who's not super socially adequate. So for me, I never know what to just say to somebody. Usually somebody has to come to me and start the conversation, so yeah. I don't know. I get where you're coming from, but from their perspective, it must also be wild to be like, these people don't know how to act around me, and that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, I've even started like rethinking the idea of like just bothering them to ask what song they want to hear. Although it's interesting because that conversation kind of can go either way. We had Deadmau5 on.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
And his name's Joel, and I'm working on it. Right, I'm doing my like social shed, and I found. There was just the right moment. There was a lull in the conversation, and I was just like, yo, man, like, what do you think if we play like one of your tunes tonight as your entrance? And he was just kind of like, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. And then somehow he got the idea to have us play like a Nickelback tune. And I didn't even know this, but he had this funny little beef with Chad Kroeger of Nickelback for a while.
No shit.
On Twitter.
Oh my God.
And so like when he said like, why don't you guys play a Nickelback tune? Just about everyone already knew that was a joke. And I thought it was hilarious because Nickelback annoys me. Like I can't stand Nickelback. Right. But like in that moment, we found out that Michael Gonzalez unironically likes Nickelback like on purpose.
Why did I know that was going to be the case? That's so funny.
Well, in retrospect, I'm like, why did I not know that was going to be the case? But yeah, like we found out because like as soon as Joel said it, Mike started like rattling off options.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, what if we did this one or this one? And I'm like, bro, do you like, are you a fucking Nickelback fan? And he was like, dude, absolutely. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It just fried my circuits. But then we got into like kind of the reason behind the joke with Joel, and it was that he had this Twitter beef with Chad Kroeger a little while back. And he said he used to just like go at that guy all the time. He said, hey, he said he did this tweet one time. It was like, hey, there's this email going around that has a link in it, and it says if you click the link, you'll get a free Nickelback album. Don't click it. They will send you a free Nickelback album.
That's so fucked. Was there like any reasoning for him trying to say that, or is just like he just thinks they're corny and doesn't like them?
I can't remember. Yeah, it might just be as simple as that. Like he doesn't like their music, and he can kind of do whatever he wants on Twitter because he's deadmau5.
Right.
But then he told us that like they ended up attending like a party together that they had to fly to. Like they ended up being on the plane together, and there was this weird, awkward situation. But they, if I remember correctly, they kind of buried the hatchet a little bit. Like they kind of like hung out, and it was cool. But like he still doesn't like their music, and it's still this funny thing.
I was gonna say it must have been a real fucking shallow grave then, because he's playing Nickelback on the Kill Tony show.
And that was the thing. It was like it was just very much an inside joke for just like the crew at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like a super fun moment that only came about because we asked him like, what song do you want for your entrance? And so yeah, it's like I never really know how that question is gonna go. A lot of people just like they don't like care at all.
Right.
And
right.
Michael Gonzalez does a really good job of kind of keeping up with everybody. Like he's seen everybody's specials, and he knows about the podcast they're on, and so like a lot of times he can be like, oh yeah, this is the theme song from their podcast, so we should just do that.
That's cool.
Which is really nice to like just have him on deck for those conversations. But then yeah, a lot of guys like have no idea and don't really care. Like do something fun. Like I don't give a shit.
Right.
Like do whatever.
Right.
There's obvious ones like with Roseanne. It's like yeah, just do that slow blues thing from the show.
Right.
But yeah, some of them just like it's like man, I don't know what to do for this guy. This is.
What's the relationship like with the some of the regulars on the show? I know you mentioned David Lucas earlier, but what about like Hans Kim and William Montgomery? Like, do you guys have relationships with them at all? And if so, I'm very curious to know what that dynamic is like. Cause talk about fucking characters, man.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Mike Gonzalez and John Dees are both just really good at that hang.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of blows my mind. They're comfortable. They've got stuff to talk about. Like every time a guest comes that's been on the show before, they'll see Mike and smile and just be like, "What's up, bro? Like, how have you been?" Like they're already greeting this kid like family. And every time I see it happen, I'm just like, "Bro, how did you do that?"
Yeah.
But the same goes for like the regulars. Mike's really good at hanging out with them. I feel like William and Hans and David all like me. Hans and I kind of share like a kindred spirit. Like we'll both be the one who, like, when the green room is too crowded, we'll both be the ones standing in the corner on the like the back side. Like when the door opens, it'll block us from view.
I see.
That's where we're just both that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I think that's like just the little thing that we share. But like we don't talk a lot. William is so brilliant. I feel like I probably overwhelm him with compliments. It's like at the end of every show, I'm just like, dude, like that was fucking incredible. We did like a New Year's thing, and I got to hear like a full bit from him. It's taken me way too long for this to sink in, but just like he is constantly trying out new material. All those little note cards that he's reading off of on the show, that's like he literally just wrote a bunch of that shit. Like,
right.
That guy is he's just constantly creating, and it's crazy to see. And I didn't put two and two together until we were on this New Year's show with him, and I got to watch like a full bit by him, prepared material. And it's just like, this guy is hilarious. This guy is incredible.
How different is it than his like material that he's doing on the spot, like on Kill Tony?
the difference is like the presentation, because all of it, like in terms of like raw hilariousness, it's always like he's always pretty on. But with his prepared material, it's it's just smoother. You can tell like he knows where he's gonna go next. It's not obvious, but there's a smoothness to it that you don't get with improvising, basically.
Right.
And so yeah, I guess every time I run into him in the green room, I'm just like, man, that was amazing. And he's just kind of like, thank you, and then like that's always where it ends.
Yeah.
And then with David loves music a lot. So that's kind of the thing we end up talking about the most together. Is just like he comes out to a lot of our gigs, and then he'll talk about so and so from whatever gig that we had the night before or the week before. He'll say, yeah, who was that dude that sat in on whatever instrument? And it's like, oh, that's this guy. He's like, man, I didn't like the way he played. Like that dude's pocket is wrong for that song.
That's so funny.
And I'm like, yeah, bro. Like it's like he kind of meets me on the one level that I have anything to like talk about. So it's a lot smoother with David. And we even have like mutual friends out in LA. He knows a bass player buddy of mine. So I think with David, that's the easiest one.
Well, it's cool that like he has like the awareness to like meet you on that level, or like cares enough to meet you on that level. Like sometimes people kind of shrug that off and say, well, all you care about is music. So then like I don't want to talk to you about anything. Then it's like, well, we can talk about music, or like maybe I can try and like understand the things that you like, if you give me the time of day or something,
Right. Exactly. Well, and at this point, like, it's just, I think it's so well known within the whole crew that like all this guy Matt does is like practice guitar and play gigs. Like he's just a lost cause.
Well, I will say, man, from watching from the outsider's perspective, I watch the show. I haven't watched last night's episode yet, but I watch the show every single week, and I think that there's an endearing quality, or there's a love for you, I think, on that show that's expressed when I watch it. I'm like, yeah, like like Tony's joke is like always Matt speaks once every 6 episodes and he's telling the guy to tune the guitar or something, or don't cup the mic or whatever it is. And it's like I think that there's I think that the viewers and the people involved in the show, from my perspective, seem to have they appreciate what you bring to the table and everything.
Yeah, it's definitely felt well, especially from Tony. He's among other things, one of the things that he's really good at is just like showing appreciation for the people that are in his circle, like showing loyalty and a very open willingness to like go to bat for you.
Yeah.
And it means a lot. I feel like it took a little while for him to show that side to me, but the farther out we get from that idea, the more I'm starting to realize that some of that was just my own perception. Like there were people in the circle who like got a lot of very clear like praise and adulation from him, and I carried a little bit of jealousy for that for a little while. It's just like, why the fuck did he make the Nether Hour the after party band, and like why is everybody like sucking these guys' dicks? Like I'm here every week like playing my ass off for this show, and it's like, dude, that's in your head. Like he shouts you out literally every week, and just because he doesn't walk up to you and say the same things that he does to them, like that doesn't mean that he doesn't notice. And it kind of took me a little bit too long to realize like the ways that he goes to bat for me personally. But man, once he started coming out to see Sketch and to see the thing that like John Dees and I were doing at the gallery on Monday nights after the show, he really started being very vocal about just how appreciative he is that we're in his crew. And it was warmly received, obviously, but it was also a bit of a wake up call for me. I was like, oh man, like you're just in your head about this. You're so, I've got my own trauma from just being in the music industry,
Right.
and I have to remember that each new case like should be a clean slate, and I shouldn't be like looking at that, with my jaded, well, I've been doing this for 15 years and no one knows who I am, like perspective. It's like, dude, like you're still able to make a living just playing the guitar. Like being famous is like a byproduct of a very like niche thing, and just because no one knows who you are doesn't mean that you don't have a career or that you have the right to like not be grateful for what is going on for you.
Right.
So try not to carry that so much, and don't like put that perspective on people who like you just don't know what's going on in their mind. You don't know until the moment comes where they look at you and say like, hey, this is what I think. Like you don't know what they're thinking, so don't force any of your jaded perspectives on them.
Totally.
All that does is sour your own energy.
Yeah, and ultimately kind of ruins the relationship because you're projecting that onto somebody, and then that comes through,
Yeah.
and then it's all that stuff. And somebody like Tony Hinchcliffe, and anybody that's kind of the head of their own little industry, I think that they value they have to value those things. I mean, he had a wildly successful podcast when he was in LA, and then moved, and then I don't know the full story, but I would imagine offered that to the band that he was playing with, and everybody said no, and I'm sure they had their reasons. But then he comes to this new place and then has to reassemble and figure out like how he's going to get people paid, and then like goes to war, I'm sure, to get you guys paid. You know what I mean? And then especially when you're playing for free for however long you did, and he recognizes that 100%.
Absolutely.
And it's probably just like, however he shows about, I'm sure that he appreciates that on a level that he probably can't even communicate properly, just because that's a real hard thing to show to people without sounding like you're just burying them in gratitude. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
right.
So I would imagine that he does feel a lot for you guys,
Yeah, he definitely does, and it's been a thing that like I've been able to see more of lately, and it's helped me a lot. I talked about just this jaded perspective that I've taken on from my own trauma of just like trying to navigate the music industry, and of late a lot of just like what I get from my relationship with him has helped me kind of open my eyes to how like I can let go of some of that, like I can work through some of that and figure out how to just like be grateful for my journey for exactly what it is, and how it despite how it doesn't look like I thought it would when I was younger, it's actually been like really great for me personally, and probably wouldn't have been this great if it had gone the way I thought I wanted it to go.
For sure, man. For sure.
It's been good.
Hell yeah. Well, you guys want to do some bottom line news?
Yes.
Let's fucking do it. What do we got,
All
Chris?
right, let's go ahead and find something that we like. What about $6 Bruce Springsteen tickets?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
What?
Yeah, I thought it was like historically high ticket prices for him.
Get the fuck out of here.
What are you fucking talking? Seriously, like thousands of dollars.
Oh, wait.
And now they're down to $6.
Oh, I thought you meant the $6 was historically high for him.
No.
That's fucking wild.
come
You might not
How
like the
did-
guy, but Jesus Christ.
No, dude, I love the boss.
How did
Get
they
outta here.
get down to 6? How did they get down
All
to
right,
6?
let's
That,
find
We're about to
that's
learn.
mind blowing to me.
Let's find out. It says the reason for it is that on Ticketmaster they're setting pricing floors, so you can't resell your ticket less than this minimum value set. And it says, as a result, the least expensive tickets were $60 before fees. And then it says tickets for the same section and row on a different website, Mega Seats, could be found for $7. So I'm trying to see why
Wait,
these
this is-
price
yeah.
floors on Ticketmaster are causing it to be so low on other places.
In multiple cities or a specific
I
city?
think
Like
this is in,
what are
this
we
is in
Tulsa.
Tulsa.
in Tulsa?
I guess the rent must be real low for the venues in Tulsa right now. No offense to Tulsa. Fucking JJ Cale was dope, but that's about all they got.
My wife and I, like I said, we go on coffee runs. We go to this spot in town. It's a food truck, but he does coffee. Shout out to him. His food truck's called Terrible Love, and this guy makes such fantastic coffee. It like I can't go anywhere else anymore.
Really?
Yeah, like the best cup cappuccino of my life.
Wow.
But he was, the boss was coming to Austin and he was trying to score tickets, and he was just talking about how like it was really hard to do because he didn't want to pay whatever the really good seats are going for, which is outrageous. With Bruce, it's like you said, it's like $1,000 or something crazy. And he was scouring the internet for deals, and I can't remember what he ended up paying, but it was definitely nowhere near $6. To hear that there are $6 tickets available anywhere is kind of frying my circuits.
It's got to be a catch here, I'm sure. I'm curious if the tickets are being purchased by a third-party ticketing company, and then because like Bruce Springsteen's got to make his money on that, right? He's not going to sell a ticket for $6. He's not going to do it, right? So somebody's got to buy that ticket and then resell it for $6 and take the hit, and then how are they recouping their income on that?
Yeah, so it's it says resale price floors harm consumers twice over. First, they keep discounted tickets from being available to fans who would otherwise not be able to go. Second, they harm sellers who just want to recoup at least part of their money when they can't go. Fans shouldn't be the ones that pay the price when Live Nation and clients fail to anticipate lower than expected demands for events. So does this kick in when like it's just underselling or something like that?
I have no idea.
I got to figure out what pricing floors do. This is new to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, well, what else we got?
Yeah.
Best day jobs for musicians.
Oh yeah, let's hear that one. I would love to hear that one.
Woo! Here we go.
Do you have a day job, Matt?
No.
No, yeah, I feel that.
Freelance writer.
Okay. So another fucking grind.
No,
okay.
the next one's even
Oh,
better.
yeah, the next one's good, Anton. This should
Music store employees. Incorrect. I can definitely vouch for that one.
Uber or Lyft driver.
That's probably pretty solid.
Private music teacher. I don't know if I can vouch for that one either.
Well,
Okay.
virtual assistant.
That one's the go-to, right?
I mean, it works. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Best side hustle.
Well, just because you can create your own
Right.
schedule and then usually people aren't going to want to take lessons past like 6 p.m. or something, so you can still gig at night and
Right.
all those things. But like,
And the whole idea of teaching what you know,
right,
it's like it's still music, so it's like
it's within that realm.
right.
Restaurant server, also incorrect because you have to work nights and weekends a lot of the time, unless you can find like a breakfast or brunch spot. But even then, it's like you got to be up early as hell and you're gigging all night. It's just like,
Yeah.
See, this is how I know this is bullshit. It says, yes, you may have heard horror stories, but if you can put up with it, this day job's a great option. You'll probably make minimum wage, but you'll make lots of money in tips if you're friendly and attentive. Name me 10 friendly and attentive musicians.
that's so true. Although, in places
Absolutely.
like New York and LA, a lot of those people, gigging full time the way that we do is not an option for them because that ecosystem doesn't really, maybe New York more than LA, but like that ecosystem doesn't thrive in the same way it does in most cities. So for them, working restaurant jobs is really like the best option.
I can tell you one of the worst side hustles for a musician that I had.
What's that?
Actually, I could tell you a couple.
What's that?
When I first got to Austin, I spent one summer working for a moving company.
Really?
And just the attempt to balance, like gigging until, 2 a.m. and getting to bed, by 3 a.m. if you're lucky, and then waking up at 6 a.m. to go work for a local moving company, which, you know, you got to realize that if it's a local moving company, you're only moving like the richest people in town.
Right.
Like, you know, people with like normal sized furniture don't just move from one spot in town to another spot in town that often.
Right.
So like if you're hiring a moving company with an 18-foot box truck, like then none of your furniture is like shorter than like, you know, 20 feet long and weighing, you know, like, so 3 hours of sleep, driving huge trucks, lifting insanely heavy pieces of furniture through houses with just finely crafted banisters and windows and like stuff that you just can't, like, you can't touch it. You can't touch it. So like if the fucking armoire that you're trying to carry up the stairs bumps the wall, you're fucked. You know?
Right.
And you're trying to do this job on no sleep, only to like finish the big moves at 10 p.m. to show up late to your gig and do it all over again.
Right.
From like 11 to 6 a.m. It was just like, I don't know how I didn't die.
I can't imagine doing a fucking moving job
summer.
like that, man. While trying to gig. That's
Plus it's in Austin in the summer where the temperature never dips below 100 degrees.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, that shit's fucking wild, and and like the labor is just super intensive as well. So it's just like, I mean, and then you gotta like figure out how to practice and like do other things on top of that. Like, there's just like no way, man. I did a landscaping job when I down in Miami for like, that lasted maybe a month tops, but those were like, you know, 12-hour days. And I can't, like, you know, I'd get home and there was no way to do anything. I wasn't like writing, I wasn't practicing, I wasn't even able to gig. It was just so, because you're out in the fucking sun in, you know, Miami, again, like, you know, 100% humidity, fucking like 100-degree weather, 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. It's just like, there's no fucking way you can do anything else after that.
Yeah, at the end of a day like that, you don't even have enough energy to get ready for bed. You just kind of like walk in the door and you fall asleep wherever you fucking land.
Exactly.
And then you start over again.
Exactly. Yeah, so those are some of the worst side hustles to have if you're a musician.
This digital music news doesn't know shit about shit.
Yeah, music and music stores suck too, bro, because you're literally in there at 7 a.m. opening a store up, and then you got to deal with people who have no idea how to play instruments, just wailing on them all day. By the time you get out of there, like, your ears are so exhausted, and like also you've been treated like total shit because people think that like you're not even a human when you work in those places. Like, you're just some kind of subspecies that you can shit all over. It's just it's such a terrible job for a musician.
And I don't know about y'all, but I'm not a salesman, like, at all.
Yeah,
it's like hard enough to figure out how to tell people like, oh, you should listen to my stuff, it's good. Like, I can barely bring myself to tell someone to listen to my stuff because it's good, even though I know it's good. You know,
believe it or not, it's easier to sell gear than it is your own shit, because like gear, you know, works.
Right. Well, yeah.
So it's like, I know this is good. My own music, I don't really know. Nobody's told me it's good yet.
Proof's not in the pudding on that one.
Yeah, but well, even with that, it's just like, yeah, sure, the gear works, but I always feel like as a salesman, like I know that I don't like having someone try to sell me something.
Totally.
So I can't get past that perspective. Like, yeah, I don't want to bother you, you know, but this guitar is really great. It's like, yeah, check it out if you want, you know, like you might like it. You know, and then your manager's just like, dude, can you make a fucking sale?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm intruding.
The thing that you keep in mind, especially the big box stores, because I have the same problem. Like, I don't like to be annoyed and being sold on shit at music stores, especially because I know more than most of what the salesperson does who's trying to sell me on it. But like, the thing to keep in mind is that most people that walk in there aren't musicians. They're just trying to buy something for their child, or they're a hobbyist that just wants to like, and they want to be talked to and like sold on something. That's majority of people. Now, it gets a little rocky sometimes when you're dealing with musicians or people that have to buy something for their child, that think that the whole entire music industry is a joke, or just like instruments are toys, and they're just
Right.
doing it for like a hobby for their kid to have in school or something. Those people are the worst people to try and sell to. And musicians suck too, because like, again, the same attitude that I have, they have towards you when you're in there. So it's just, yeah, it's that meme right there. I know more than you do. Yeah. It's Ron Swanson. Love that guy. And there was another one that I saw up there, another bottom line news that I saw that was like about Spotify adopting the TikTok.
Oh, you saw that one? I thought we were getting away from TikTok.
I do want to get away from TikTok, but I am curious as to Spotify adopting the same GUI, though. It's interesting.
A podcaster or a 14-year-old who wants to.
Whoa.
Well, I think it's an interesting thing for a musician to know about,
Cool. All right, let's figure it
Yeah, like when does that go into effect?
And how does it go into effect? Like, is it just
Right.
streaming music, or is it doing videos, or what?
out. So they kind of, I guess, laid out a demo of it last year. It's testing it. No further news to share on plans. That's cool. Vertical homepage could be part of the effort to attract the younger 18 to 24 crowd. 1 in 3 Spotify users is in that demographic. So basically, they're just trying to get their GUI to look a little better.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to, are they going to be doing videos, or are they just, is it, I
It seems
can't-
like it's mainly the homepage, so it seems like most of other
Oh.
Spotify will have that. But at the homepage, I guess you'll have some sort of page where you can scroll through stuff.
Okay.
I almost wonder if it's like the Discover Weekly playlist, just in a scrollable form.
that could be cool.
So like, you got this. Oh, here's this new music for you this week. You scroll through and go, oh, this is cool. This is cool.
Right.
I don't know.
What else is there? Is there more
I mean,
over there?
at the risk of sounding like an old man, it's like if they really wanted to make an improvement to their app, it would just, and they have actually, they've done a little bit of this, but it's just like, I want the search engine to work as well as like YouTube or Google, where it's like I can literally just pick a piece of a lyric and get that song, because like I can't always remember what the name of the thing is.
That's true, man. I didn't really think
that
about
I want to hear. And like, man, for a while there with Spotify, and they've improved it, I guess that bears mentioning as many times as possible, but they've improved it. But for a while there, it was like you couldn't even put the name of the song and the artist and expect any results.
Right. Right.
And so it's like, yeah, like guys, I get it. You're trying to make the app more appealing, but like I need that search engine to work better than like anything.
Yeah.
Like, that's what.
Yeah, it sounds like this is mainly just saying trying to make it more appealing to 18 to 24, and it says has already invested heavily in video initiatives, so a new scrolling feed highlighting videos, audiobooks, and podcasts isn't too surprising, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, they've already started doing with Rogan's podcast. He has full video on there. Yeah. We'll see what happens. Here's another way to think about it, though, is that Spotify might be trying to adapt to be something that it's not, and it might end up doing more harm than good. Like, why are you trying to compete with platforms like TikTok and, ultimately Instagram and YouTube and these video and picture based platforms? That's not what you do. No one knows you for doing that. You're trying to enter into a new realm that's already super competitive with the major platforms.
Oh man, all of them are.
I don't know, man. Why are we videoing this podcast right now?
Because YouTube, not because of Spotify. I would never expect anybody to watch a video on Spotify for this.
I mean, that's why Spotify wants videos, is just to get people that are interested in TikTok and interested in YouTube over to more people over.
I know what the impulse is. I'm just curious. I'm not even saying that they're wrong for doing it. I'm just saying, like, what if the backlash could be that your existing customer base does not know you for doing that thing, and then you're going to you run the risk, I think, of confusing your existing base to compete in a world where it's not supposed to be competing in, and then you run the risk of losing them possibly.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I saw Netflix is doing. I was on it on my phone the other day for the first time in years, and they're integrating us like a Reels thing too, just for mobile.
That makes sense for Netflix though. It's a movie based or video based platform.
But it's
sure you get like a little trailer,
and so maybe that makes sense. But you could also, I guess you could see that working for podcasts and stuff, maybe. But it's like, I go there for completely not light scrolling. I go there to commit to watching a thing.
Yeah, but you're also on your phone too, and that's
true.
so I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Listening to new music. It wouldn't be that wouldn't be too weird if I was on a homepage and I could literally just scroll, and as I was like looking for new stuff, if it just played like a 15-second like thing as I was like scrolling through it, that wouldn't be too thing. Okay, I like that. Let me check out this album.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that could totally be a thing too.
Especially if like
that would be
Tinder
hilarious.
for Spotify?
Tinder for Spotify. It's just like and they'll do that too. They already have like playlists where they're trying to be like, here's your matches for this week, and you'll literally go left and right.
Maybe that's a better
totally
option.
a thing.
Maybe
Like,
they should try to
God.
adopt the Tinder model instead
Dude, there's
of the
gotta be
TikTok model.
that app already has
I mean-
it has to exist already. It has to.
I need like a second Spotify account for any of that to work because my algorithm's so fucked up.
Yo,
I
Because
use
most of the
gig
music
break
I listen
music.
to is just music that I have to like learn.
Yeah.
Break music for gigs or music that I have to learn for gigs. It's just like none of this shit is actually shit that I listen
I worked
to.
at churches for years and used my personal Spotify for house music, and so for years my algorithm was just trash.
I
it
swear.
was just
Dude.
all Hillsong, and it was awful.
We were at a last year tour, or maybe at the end of 2021 or something. I was at this club that we play at a lot, 1904 Music Hall, and like the owner was there. Shout out to Jason Honeycutt and like a bunch of other people, and everyone was like reviewing their most played songs on Spotify that year, like their type of music and all this shit, and like they all have like this cool stuff and like hip shit, and I'm like sitting there like Red Hot Chili Peppers and fucking Justin Timberlake. And all this shit. I was like, okay, well,
Dude. Fucking Uptown Funk.
yeah, bro. So like that. And everyone's looking at it like, what the fuck? I'm like, bro, this is for break music and for shit that I have to learn. I rarely put on Spotify just to like listen to music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I do, it's on a car ride to a gig and it's like, 20, 30 minutes while the rest of the gig for 3 hours is just playing random shit,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get that.
There's also a whole like rant just waiting about how like capitalism ruins art constantly.
Yeah.
It's like, like it's like everyone sees TikTok making all this fucking money and now they're just like, okay, well, we need to like reshape every other form of the entertainment industry to look like that now so that we can make money too. And it's like, no, you don't.
Right.
You don't.
You need to offer an alternative is what needs to happen rather than trying to adopt a thing. But like, I don't know. There's an argument to be made on either side. I'm a capitalist, so I believe that capitalism helps in some ways drive competition. I think that creativity. That's fine. Everyone can laugh if they want, but I think
no. It just later in the edit, we're gonna clip it right there. I think it helps somehow. I know.
Well, I think that there's something you said about competition driving creativity as well, but I think that there is a tipping point sometimes when it has to be on the artist to decide whether or not you're going to compete at that level, and that's the thing. It's like, to me, we have the choice to make. Do we want to try and fit the narrative that's consuming the pop culture, or do you try and find the niche where you can be your true creative self without having to compete with something that's kind of irrelevant to what you actually want to do, right? And I think that we can do that. I think that there will be somebody that comes out at some point that offers an alternative to the quick 30-second, 1-minute video kind of ecosystem that we're living in right now. Because I do think that music's gonna have to adapt too. There'll be like 30-second songs, and then and that'll be an interesting thing to try and either figure out how to write in that style and produce in that style, or you just don't adapt to that style and another avenue is created. But I don't think that it ultimately negates the other just because the one exists. Somebody just has to be like brave enough to take it on,
Well, yeah, I mean, and I admire the idealism behind your capitalism.
Yeah.
I think in the same way that I'm like jaded about my, that I've been jaded about my like music industry career. I feel very similarly about capitalism in that, like, yeah, the idealism behind what you're saying is is fantastic, but so often what we see is just like everyone driving everything down for the sake of that bottom line.
Yeah.
It's like anytime somebody sees something work, they immediately formularize it, they sterilize it, and they try to find some way to suck absolutely all the heart and the passion out of all of it so that they can just fucking mass produce it and make a buck for less.
I totally see that point too, for sure.
And it's so soul crushing to just see over and over and over and over and over in every industry you can think of. It's always just like, yeah, let's go for the bottom line. Let's do anything we can do to make this cheaper to produce, even if that means cheapening the product itself. And so, like, you know, I don't know if that's like capitalism's fault or American capitalism's fault, but it's so closely related. It's hard for me to like figure out where the line is.
Well, to me, that's like there's that saying that people, use. And it's like, don't hate the player, hate the game. I totally disagree with that statement. I believe hate the player, don't hate the game. The game just exists and the player plays it how they want, and that's the problem, right? Like
Sure.
Because it negates the responsibility of the player, because
Right.
the idea is like capitalism, and I get that like, I'm not making the argument for like full-on anarchy or full-on libertarianism. I do believe that things need to be regulated and controlled to an extent. However, I also think that people need to make better choices in how, in the way that they're thinking about what actually matters. There's too many people out there that are thinking about like what you're saying, which is the bottom line. And it's okay, but the purpose of this thing is not the money at the end of the day. It's the intrinsic value of art here has to be savored, I think. And that
the way it drives innovation.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely the beautiful side of it. I just
because again, it's like to me, if the responsibility has to be on the person who's competing. You can't just say you can't just negate or rule out the ethics or the morality of what you're doing because you want to make a dollar, right? You have to like ethics, morality, and also just the intrinsic value of art have to maintain their value and have like a real say in the equation. Otherwise, it always becomes about the bottom line, and then it suffers. And then as a culture, we suffer because we're getting fast food art now, and it's toxic for the brain totally, and how we move forward in our lives and as a society as a whole.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with what you're saying to that end.
Well, yeah, and hearing what you're saying, I feel like I need to like update my hate. So I mean, maybe it's not capitalism in general. It's American capitalism is fraught with it. But yeah, it's, at the end of the day, it all just boils down to greed. I have this interesting theory that greed is another like addiction, like the same way like alcoholism or like porn.
Right.
That the scary thing about like greed or like a person's addiction for like more power or more money is that once you accumulate so much of it, the consequences drop off. Whereas like if you're addicted to heroin or if you're addicted to alcohol, it can damage your life. And at some point you'll have to like choose between having like an awful life or like kicking this addiction. But with greed, the more you act on it and the more you gain, the more those consequences fade away. If you're rich enough, like you don't ever lose money. You've got shield accounts and trust funds, and you like if you get sued, like you can just declare bankruptcy. You don't lose any of your money like one portion of your company does. And like these consequences just kind of fade away, and the richer and more powerful you become, the more accessibility you have to just gathering more wealth and power.
That is,
and there's no way to like unbecome a greedy asshole. You just keep going. There's no consequences for it.
That is definitely true to an extent, and I think Bernie Madoff might be a good example of somebody that didn't work for, right? Because like he, after the collapse of the stock market in 2008, he was brought down for essentially running a Ponzi scheme and $50 billion of investments, and people's money was just gone. And that was an example of his greed where it worked against him, and now he's serving the rest of his life in prison. He was doing something that was overtly greedy, and it was greed. It was a greed that was that was perpetuating more greed. The problem with other people is that there's an actual product or a service that they're producing that people are buying into, and then they figure out a way to manipulate that product or service to work for the greed. And that's the examples that we see. But there's a level of greed where I think it does there's a backlash. And if your industry is greed, like you're doing a Ponzi scheme essentially, then you'll see that goes away, like, because it's not sustainable. At a certain point, there's a disregard for ethics, I think, that should be considered to be illegal. Maybe that's where it needs to be. That's where that line needs to be drawn. Like, okay, well, this isn't. I talked to a state legislator one time when I was in college, and I brought up I brought something up. I was like, well, what about the corruption involving this, and this? And he was like, it's not corrupt. You might not agree with it, but it's not corrupt. And I was like, right, because corrupt would imply that it's illegal, right? And that's the language that they use, right? If you say corrupt, it's like
scary.
Yeah, because okay, well, it's not corrupt, but it's unethical. Okay, but it's not illegal. It's like, fuck you, man. Well, then you get away with being a terrible piece of shit human being because it's technically not illegal. But we all know that this is outside, especially it was a Republican legislator. I'm like, especially for somebody who claims to live by a religious moral compass. Right. It's like, so it's unethical, but you don't care, even though it's unethical to your God, but because it's illegal or because it's legal to the government's eyes, like you still do it. And that's the fucked up part,
It's also so scary to hear a person who is responsible for making laws in this country like wield philosophy like that. Yeah, it's like, well, it's not corrupt if it's if it's legal. It's like, motherfucker, you have the power to make it legal. Do you understand how scary it is to hear you say that?
One thing I learned in college is that, like, when you're having a debate in the realm of philosophy, you have to kind of give grace to language and to ideas that come up, because we know that we're talking in a world of hypotheticals. We're not talking about a real world. So if we bring up controversial ideas or words or whatever, there needs to be grace given there, that we're not actually saying what we think. We're just spitballing ideas. But in politics, they always,
if this happens, it equals this.
Exactly. Right. And it's like, well, what if this is, and then it does this? And it's like, well, that what if might be the most controversial thing, but if the outcome could be a positive, then we need to be able to have that discussion, right? But in the world of politics, they only live in that realm because they see none of the outcome of their decisions, right? Like down to the stop sign being changed in a neighborhood, whatever it might be. Like they experience whatever call they make, they experience none of the outcomes. They have their income coming in, they have their universal health care, they have their people donating to their campaigns, which afford their lifestyles always and forever. And as long as they keep that running, they don't really give a shit about what conversations are being had or what decisions are being made. As long as they keep their place in office, they can just do and say whatever they want. And that's what they do. So when somebody like that says, well, it might be, it's not corrupt because it's legal, right? So you might not agree with it. It's like, you can just say that because you don't have to deal with the consequences of what you're saying right now. I live in the community that you're talking about, and this is what it does, and this is why it's a problem. So if you don't see why it's a problem, then fuck you, and why are you making decisions for me, right?
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Do you feel like Madoff was an exception, or do you feel like he was the rule?
No, he was definitely made an example of, just given of the time, right? Like the industry collapsed and the world economy collapsed, and he was running a Ponzi scheme, right? And then it's like, well, this is the one guy that we can that we can really. He was overtly doing something illegal, and just the weight of his clients. I mean, people like George Clooney and fucking like mega movie stars, but also mega investors and firms, right? Like entire companies invested money in it. Just the weight of his clientele and the time. It was a perfect storm for him to be the face of the collapse of the United States. Because at the end of the day, there always needs to be a scapegoat. Nobody's going to take responsibility for what happened, right? So we just say Bernie Madoff ran a Ponzi scheme. So here's your bad guy. And it's like, well, he was just taking advantage of a system that was created long before he ever became a player. And it's like, well, the player does need to accept responsibility 100%, but the system that we created allowed him to take advantage in that capacity as well. So I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
So like given that for most people who are able to like acquire wealth and power, given that the odds are low that they'll be making an example of.
They
don't know.
They totally take advantage of that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
like I feel that
it's like,
100%.
This is a problem, And going back to what you were saying about legislators just like manipulating words and twisting everything so that the rules just make sense for them. It's like, man, at some point either somebody's got to stand up and say like, no, there's a reason to do the right thing. Or we just continue to pursue like the almighty dollar and let the chips fall where they may. And sorry if you're the little guy that's just what you were born into.
Yeah.
Get fucked.
I think that, there's an interesting, but we can move on after this. There's a point that I think is interesting is that there's like this idea of the collective and this idea of the individual. And then this is where the right is saying, well, the individual is what matters. And then the left is saying, well, the collective is what matters. And I think that we have to stop like talking about that dichotomy or just like that dynamic and start saying that like when we can figure out how to teach people that the interest of the individual is the interest of the collective, then we can start to like really have a conversation. Because otherwise what we're saying is that the government has to own everything and make the decisions that are best for the collective, and then the people on this side saying, well, it's the individual. Don't trust the people on the left, and there's this war that's created. It's like, well, guys, like the idea ultimately is that what's best for me is best for all of us. What's best for you is best for me. If we're all working under the idea that like, our self-interests are at stake here, then I want you and everyone else around me to be as happy as possible. That way I can like also be as happy as possible. Because if I'm sitting here fucking over everybody around me, I'm creating a world that's not sustainable, right? So like we have to get in line with the idea that the interests of the collective and the individual are aligned, I believe,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, it's enough of the fucking political bullshit.
We tumbled right into that one, didn't we?
I know. You guys want to do some unpopular opinions?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Let's fucking do it. You guys got some back there?
Yeah. All right. There an unpopular opinion. There's not enough 24-hour spots of anything across the board. There's just not.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
Waffle House, that's great. You're our savior, but like, I want to go do my laundry at 3 a.m, and there's just not places here in Jacksonville I can do that.
No, you got to go move to a real city for that, bro.
I'm thinking about it, but they like Walmart's. They stop Walmart's from being 24 hours. Like I need my breakfast cereal after my gig. Like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, I get it. Like, everyone thinks it's still like the 1920s or whatever. Like, we all wake up at 8, we all go to our jobs, we're all home by 5, and we're all asleep by 10. No, we're not doing that shit anymore. Like, there's so many, people with different schedules. Like, we need to be able to go out and do shit at night. Come on, work with us here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't totally agree with you because I think there are plenty of examples in bigger cities where that's the case. But
I live there.
I know, so like that's why I don't totally agree with you. I agree that that needs to happen more in cities that have a bigger population that don't have there aren't, they don't have places open past 2 a.m. or whatever. I think that needs to definitely change though, for sure.
I hear a lot of old people complaining about like robots are going to take our jobs. This is why I want robots to take our jobs.
Exactly.
Robots don't need to sleep because I mean that's the thing is
Just
that
make
like
them
you
work
have
the
to have
after
people
hours.
to like work Walmart at 1 a.m. and there's barely enough people that want to work Walmart at 1 p.m. So but robots don't give a shit. There's a weird button on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you just make the robots work the hours that we don't want to work.
Look, we already have to be our own cashiers. I should be able to go in there and check out whatever I want.
True.
Man,
know?
self-checkout gets a lot of hate from people these days. I don't. I love it.
I'm into it too.
I love it too, man.
That's
The Walmart discount.
Like, yeah, I've always watched them do that job and be like, I can do this.
Yeah. Why? You don't need to do that. That's fine. I have arms.
I can assure you, as somebody who worked in a grocery store, though, that is the second best job to work in that store.
I bet.
Next to
manager?
No, to meat department, because it's constantly moving, right? If you have to work in grocery or the warehouse or something, bro, I've worked 8-hour shifts where in grocery where you're just walking around and you're like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, why am I getting paid to work here? So I can wait here till we close just to move everything forward to make it look good in the morning. It's so not even restock.
Yeah.
Just move the things forward so it just looks like it's fully stocked. Like, what kind of North Korea bullshit is that?
Yeah, I feel that. I guess it depends on just how much you like the job. Like if you're there to do the work, then please pay me to keep busy. But if you hate the job, it's I will love being on the clock, not doing shit right now.
Yeah.
Please pay me for that.
Yeah. If I have to be somewhere and for any amount of time, I would rather be there working than not, because at least it makes the time go by. I can't. I don't understand this being on the clock and just doing nothing and making money. It's okay, I don't care about making the money. Give me something to do so the time goes by. If I have nothing to do and I'm just sitting here making money, but I'm not doing anything. I could be practicing, writing, doing anything, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That should, yeah. But yes, 24-hour shit, I'm all for it. For more.
Yeah, I'm into it.
What you got, Gene?
I don't really have anything right now, honestly.
Wow, bro.
I know.
All right. Well,
you go. Okay, here's a second one for Gene.
Okay, sure.
Cruise ships can't be that great.
No, that is a fucking fact. Honestly,
okay.
Cruise ships are don't get me wrong. I just got off of a cruise. It was fun, but I mean, I don't know. It's just it's just a big boat. Maybe that was just the cruise I was on. It's cool. I don't know. They're a little overrated.
It's an all-inclusive hotel on the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of Vegas, and there's only so much Vegas I can handle. I'm not even a huge Vegas fan, so
like an hour. I can handle about an hour of Vegas.
Yeah.
And that's pushing it.
And especially you go down to the casino deck, and it's just this even smells like Vegas. This just I am just
it
in
really
Vegas.
does.
Yeah, it's something else.
They just pipe some of the boat exhaust into the casino floor.
Yeah. It wouldn't
so
surprise
good.
me.
That was good, Chris. Yeah, I don't know. I've only been on a cruise once, and it was when I was very young, and I remember it being fun. But I was also a child that had no context for anything.
Yeah, you don't have to pay for any of that.
Right.
And that's what was great about this cruise. This was a family cruise. My stepdad was retiring, so we all went, and it was he footed the bill, and it was great. I wouldn't want to do that and pay money for it, because I know it was probably extremely expensive, and especially if you we had a drink package where our drinks were included, so it was pretty much all you could drink all week, which was great, because I've heard people that are if you don't get that, you will end up spending as much money as you spent on the cruise on booze on the cruise.
Yeah.
So having the drink package, but even then everything else is super expensive. It's $18 a glass of wine, for a wine you could buy for $20 a bottle at
That's
Costco.
insane.
So it is what it is. And then I was telling all these guys before the podcast that I had some gripes about the production on the cruise, but it makes sense because it's clearly something that was programmed 3 years ago for an idiot to run. So that's kind of what it is, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good unpopular opinion. I mean, I haven't been on a cruise, so I don't have any point of reference to talk about it. But yeah, I could see how it would be a little underwhelming after like, I mean, I'm about to do a cruise gig for 2 weeks off the coast of Europe in like a month or two or something. So I'm gonna find out very quickly how much I hate it or love it. I would imagine after day 3 or 4, it gets pretty monotonous though.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine like doing one of those cruises because I was just like, we were getting back into port and I was just sitting there, like it was a Saturday. Our cruise left on a Saturday. I was like, this cruise is literally like, we're leaving now at 10. There are people about to probably come on this boat at noon. Like, and then it's gonna start back up again. Like they're gonna switch the key from goodbye to hello, and then like it'll be like another week. Like let's do it again.
Wow.
I couldn't imagine that. Like like it's just mind boggling.
What do you think, Matt?
I think it was as soon as you said you've got a cruise gig coming up. I wondered, I need to know like, what kind of gig? Are you just in one of the onboard like ship entertainment bands, or are you going on there with an artist? Like,
I'm going on there with an artist, and so backing him up,
yeah. So I think that having a cruise gig that way, like, that's probably the most enjoyment you could get out of a cruise. The only cruises I've done were that. I did one with a Texas country artist. And he was enough of an asshole that he almost like ruined every experience I had with him. But it was still like all the time I got to spend not around him on the ship, being paid to be there. Like it was pretty dope. And then I did another one with like a Christian band, and that one was weird for me. It was like a marriage cruise, and I mean it was me and my wife on the gig, but it was still just like, man, this is weird. Like this, we're all on this boat for a week. Just like doing like seminars and like,
oh my god,
like worship sets. Like this whole thing is just about like being married,
Yeah.
I was like, this is weird, but I still had like a really great time because like the band was dope and I was paid to be there and we got to do a few excursions. It was like my wife's first time to go ziplining ever.
Oh, nice.
And it was just like, it was a lot of fun. But I've heard nightmare stories about just like being in one of the show bands on the ship. Like apparently the musicianship is just like not something you want to deal with.
I saw some shows
ever.
And I was not impressed by a lot of things that happened. Like
I have friends that make most of their living off of doing the cruise ship thing and like not backing artists or just like a band on the ship or whatever. And it's some contracts, depending on what you sign, like when you're not playing, you have to be doing like, cleaning duties, like cleaning bathrooms or like doing whatever. Yeah. So, and, or if it's not that, like, you can't talk to any of the people on the ship, or like if you're not playing, you have to remain in your quarters type thing. Like there's all these rules with this one that I'm doing. I'm backing up an artist. So we have more, like we can do the excursions and we can do whatever we want to do basically. We don't have full range like the passengers do, but like we can still do, way more than what most of the people that I know that have done cruises can do,
Yeah.
So
if there's one way to make like a variety band gig worse, it's to like just trap you on a boat with extra rules.
Yeah, for real.
Jesus. Real quick, I did want to apply Chris's thing to Chris's other thing, which was my thing. The 24 hours. One thing I was super annoyed about on the cruise is like shit closed. I'm like, why does anything on this boat close? Like nothing. Like
at any time.
All of us are adults. Like we're all like, if I want to fucking play in like, if I want to be in the pool at 2 a.m., why can't I be in the pool at 2 a.m.? Like I don't get it. Why does the hot tub close at 10:30? This is insane. Like, I was just like, because at a certain point, the only thing that was open was this like Irish pub themed bar called O'Sheehan's. Like, and that's where we were every night at 2 a.m. drunk as shit, being like, we need some French fries.
Oh no.
But like,
And you can't even get them.
there's
The kitchen closed an hour ago.
Yeah, exactly. No, oh my god, it was like the other thing that was funny is we got on the boat and we all read the descriptions for all the little areas, and there was this one place we read the description and we were like, that is the raddest place ever. And then the next sentence was it was like teen lounge, and we were like, God damn it.
Oh yeah. I remember that I went in a teen lounge when I went on there because I was like 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was pretty dope for a teen lounge. Lots of lights and terrible music. So
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much that's a cruise for you. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a good one. What you got, Matt?
I was trying to think. About the only unpopular opinion I have lately is just like, I probably liked a movie that most people hated. I don't have any good ones lately. I still kind of want to stick to the one I had the last time we did this, especially since it'll never air.
Stick to it. I love that unpopular opinion. Let's get into it.
Yeah, and that is that just like rock musicians aren't as good as all the fucking hype they get.
yes.
This shit's
Agreed.
still, and like after having that conversation with y'all, there were like parts of it that I wanted to update. Like after I got to thinking about it, like I still have a lot of respect for what rock artists do, and it's kind of what you said about like about how valuable like what Gary said about what he does is. It's like, yeah, they do what they do. I think for me, more than anything, it's not even hate anymore. It's just like a frustration for people who like carry these opinions, Just
Yeah, totally.
they're the best band ever, Going back to what we were talking about earlier tonight, just like anytime you say something is the best, it's ridiculous. It's like it's insane.
Right.
It's ludicrous.
Right.
Like how do you even verify this opinion that you have?
Right.
The best at what? How do you even calculate that?
Right.
And so people, the one that keeps like punching me in the face, just punching like pow pow, is just the love that Red Hot Chili Peppers fans have for that band.
This man gets me, dude.
Yeah, we just talked about this recently. Yeah.
Dude. Like, John Frusciante is such a good guitarist, bro. It's like, bro, he's just a rock guitarist. Like, you need to chill the fuck out.
Would you say Anton, a rock guitarist with a heroin addiction?
Yeah.
It's just like, he's okay, man. Like, yeah, he does what he does.
Right. That's the
And
only thing that I will
people-
say. Yeah.
Because they have rock star status, they get like these privileges that like some people just will never have, and that is one of those privileges is to like build these super bands. I saw like one of my students showed me this YouTube video of one of these super groups. It was like Flea and Frusciante and Omar from Mars Volta.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's an
And,
animal. That guy.
Yeah, even Omar, and this video was kind of what shed some light on this for me because I love what Omar does. And up until I saw this video, like I would jump right on the bandwagon. I would be like, "Oh yeah, Omar is a phenomenal musician." And for what he does, I stand by that opinion. But this group of Flea and him and Frusciante, they were trying to do a bunch of like really proggy, like fusion-based odd meter stuff without a drummer that I don't know which one of them wrote, but it's just like, and that was another thing, like all of their tones, man, their tones work really great in the bands that they're in.
Right.
But if you just throw the three of them on a stage together, guys that have nothing but like just decades of experience doing their thing in their band,
Right.
and then you ask the three of them to do something cohesive together, dude, it was unlistenable.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I hated every second of it. And with Flea and Frusciante, I could give a fuck. It's just like these guys can suck all they want to suck.
Yeah.
I don't care. But it was hard for me to watch Omar up there, like sounding objectifiably bad.
Yeah.
Doing that thing. I was like, man, this is really hard for me. I like what this guy does. I like it a lot. But this sucks. And the only reason this is happening is because rock fans everywhere are just like, yeah, they're incredible. Put them on a stage with goddamn anybody. It'll sound amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, no, it won't. Don't put them on the stage with anybody but the band that they do shit with, because it's going to sound like a fucking dumpster fire. Don't do it. It's awful.
It's what happens when we let the consumer be the producer, right?
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
It's like you guys listen, let us do what we do and you decide whether or not you like it, but you don't get to choose who we're going to play with and like, you know, what the outcome of the music is going to be, because at the end of the day, that's what we do. You guys press the like button or the love button, and then we adapt how we have to. But like at the end of the day, you know, you don't get to choose what gets to happen up here. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, yeah, that's what happens when we try to like please a consumer versus just staying true to what we do. The Chili Peppers, as far as I'm concerned, like they're like, I love the Chili Peppers. I'm a big fan, right? But like, but there's no part of me that's saying that like they're the best musicians on the planet. And I don't think that any one of them would say that either, right? Like I think that they're very well aware of what they do and where they stand in the pecking order of musicianship. To me, like they sound good in the context of what they do. Outside of that, I wouldn't expect anything more. I would for sure expect less, but I wouldn't expect more than what I've heard with the Chili Peppers, you know? Oh boy, we could go down a rabbit hole on this one.
Oh dude, there are just so many. Like, you know, all the like real metalhead fans who just like hail Metallica as the greatest band of all time, and then like just like pick a random Kirk Hammett solo. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Just fucking put it in a bucket, bro. Draw one lottery style. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I hate every single thing about it. It's not good, man. Yeah. It's not. And like, you know, there's obviously Kirk Hammett is like, or not Kirk Hammett, sorry. James Hetfield is just like the most undeniable rhythm guitarist for metal of all time. I wish people would just say that.
Right.
You know, like, it's like, yeah, Metallica's a decent band. Weird writing. Let's be honest. I get really tired of people trying to tell me that the writing in Metallica is so fucking good. No, it's weird, bro. It's weird. Okay? What is it? It's not classical. It's not metal. Like, the forms of these songs are like, and cool. Like, they did a journey, but it's just like, it's a journey of riffs.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
They're not doing anything mind-blowing. It's just like, here's a riff, here's another riff, here's another. We've got 15 riffs, and we're going to string them all together.
And now we have a song.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's not mind-blowing writing. Can we stop pretending that it's the fucking best thing since Bach?
I think the only thing that I could say about that is just like the time, right, of when they were like doing what they were doing. Like, it was like, it was very heavy and like just kind of not being done at a mainstream level for that time. And I think that's the main thing. But a lot of that was before even I think Kirk Hammett was in the band, right? Like, so it's like then all the stuff in the 90s came around and they kind of toned it down big time. And it was like, okay, well then this isn't even really the Metallica that people are talking about from like the 80s. This is like a whole different thing.
And what's crazy is like the stuff I like the best by them is all the stuff that like the diehard fans like hate.
Right.
Like, I like the Black Album.
Me too.
I like Load. Dude, I fucking like Load. Like, just suck on that for a little bit, Metallica fans. I like that fucking record. Because they wrote songs on that record, for crying out loud.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, man. 100%.
Man, I used to think jazz fans were the most pretentious people out there, but it's really rock fans.
Yeah.
Well,
it really is, man.
I think
especially
sucking their own dicks.
Even like when you get older and you start to get to like people that are really into like Led Zeppelin and stuff like that, I think those people are super fucking pretentious. Like,
yeah, I mean, I love Zeppelin. I won't deny, but
I do too.
But
yeah, I mean, they're great.
Awesome.
But, like,
and Jimmy
there's
Page,
people that worship them.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page, you know, is we've talked about this before, the king of slop as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
However,
same.
One of my early influences, and I can't deny the impact he's had on my playing and just my,
Yeah, the slop really resonates.
Yeah, shut the
Absolutely.
fuck up.
Damn, you like savage. Absolutely. You like following up, you're like, oh, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. Well,
Bro, with friends like these.
tell me about it, bro. Chris is just trying to get all the payback for the years of torment I put on him over the. So Anyways,
Ongoing.
but yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff with that. I mean, I feel like to me when people, I would have a much easier time if people would say things like they're the greatest guitar player that I've heard, or the greatest guitar player, within this genre of music, whatever it might be.
Right.
Like, how can you just like so confidently and dismissively say they're the greatest guitar player of all time? Like someone like fucking, like Page is a good example. Say that they're like the best when, especially of that time when you have like, even before that time, you have people like Wes Montgomery that exist, or like fucking just anybody of any other of jazz in general or funk, where it's like these people had a much better idea of time and harmony and arranging and all this stuff, where it's like,
Dude,
to just
tone
or Page's tone was hard. Yeah, definitely.
Dude.
I agree with you for sure. The rock, the rock guys, and really their fans are the ones that are the hard ones, because I think any musician, of within their respective fields would admit that they're not what their fans say they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you got guys like Joe Walsh and fucking Glenn Frey from the Eagles that were just like, I mean, Hotel California is an amazing and iconic solo, and I mean, probably the perfect rock and roll solo in my opinion.
Dude, the phrasing is it's just it's flabbergasting.
Yeah.
It's like, man, like right inside the changes, but every lick was like a statement.
Totally, man.
And it's like, and you like jazz guys, and I'll say this all day because I'm absolutely guilty of it. We're so prone to just like picking a subdivision and then just like vomiting notes at that tempo for like an entire set of changes. And like, yeah, it's it's a matter of taste, and you're searching and all this stuff, but you get back to the Hotel California solo, and it's just like, man, every single phrase is like a lick that you could put in a lick book. Like, you should probably learn this because it's great.
100%, man.
And at the risk of making a statement that we're complaining about, right? Like, oh, it's the best there is. It's like, no, this is quantifiably great. It affects people when they hear it,
right? You can
and
sing it.
It's been remembered for years, and if you took it and you can sing it, and if you took it and put it into one of your own solos, it would also have impact.
Right? Exactly, man. Exactly.
So well composed.
So I think overall, like my takeaway from the whole thing is that, like, I don't know if it's the genre necessarily. I think that there's a lot of players within every genre that kind of get an accolade that maybe they shouldn't deserve. Just the problem with rock and roll and blues and the more kind of attainable styles of music is that there's a lot of people that get accolades with them that just haven't put the work in, and because it's so obtainable, it's they get by in that world,
Yeah.
And then there's a lot less forgiveness in genres like jazz and classical music and just prog rock, and
there's like negative forgiveness in the classical world. My wife tells me nightmare stories. She's what I like to call a recovering classical musician.
That's the drummer in my band Side Hustle, my old band Side Hustle. He's a classical percussionist first, and he would tell me these horror stories of just like
it's brutal.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so
just like unbearable amounts of judgment for the tiniest details.
Yeah, like do you sound like they sounded back in fucking 300 years ago? It's like, I don't know. Do I? Like, who knows what that sounds like? What the fuck?
You can just be exiled over a 2-note phrase.
Right. All right. So that was a good unpopular. I love that. I'm glad that you said that one again, because I liked that one the last time too.
It's the only one I got.
So I'm gonna go with something maybe a little less controversial. People who hold up the line buying Powerball tickets at the fucking gas station can go right to fucking hell.
See, this is where the answer of robots comes into play. They have the machines, and you can go to the machine. Like,
I swear to
don't
God.
have to go to the fucking counter. Go to the goddamn robot.
Do you know how many times I've sat there at a gas station on the way to a gig or something? I was just like, I've got a fucking water bottle and some, I don't know, like fucking a gas station pizza or something just to hold me over so I can get through the gig. And I gotta go, and somebody's sitting there trying to pick out fucking lotto numbers or like fucking cashing their lotto numbers. Like, bro, we're talking $2 here. You're costing me more than that just by waiting in this fucking line for that.
I don't understand how it's even still a thing, right? Like in the day and age where we have like apps and automation for literally everything.
For real.
Why are we selling lottery tickets at a counter?
Bro.
Like, why is it not all completely digital?
For real, bro. Or at the very least, a fucking robot in the gas station that we can just fucking automatically handle the shit. If you really got to get up and go to the fucking gas station to go enter a raffle that you're for sure not going to win, then like, please, why are you like? I'm trying to actually go make money right now while you're just wasting your fucking money on something that's for sure not thing. It's not going to happen for you. I'm sorry. So
I mean, in the least bit, put it in a vending machine.
Yeah,
you know, like
exactly.
where you're not holding up the line.
Yeah,
just like put it somewhere else. You could have lotto number dispensing vending machines at every street. Like, they could be more common than ATMs, for crying out loud.
100%.
Thinking about the money to be made if you just had lotto vending machines and you stopped holding up the line at convenience stores. We're talking about multiple tiers of money to be made.
100%, bro. I'm so glad that we're all on board with that because that shit drives me fucking crazy.
It's ruined many a gig because that is a mood killer. Like, I am instantly furious. I'm pissed. No music is on in the car. I'm now angry going to the gig. And then I play like fucking Jimmy Page, sloppy as shit the whole fucking rest of the gig, man. I just can't stand these people.
Yeah, I like how you use that excuse for that.
I gotta use some excuse, and I'll make up another one in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's one of my biggest pet peeves, man. I can't stand it. I don't buy lottery tickets. I don't care to fucking buy into that system at all. And when other people are doing it, all I can think is like, you are a fool. Please get the fuck out of my way so I can so I can really contribute to society while you sit here and just be a fucking succubus on everyone around you, because that's what you are. If you're sitting there holding up a line for fucking, especially if you're buying multiple of them, fuck you. Straight up. Anyways. All right.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I never thought about it before. I don't go to convenience stores that often anymore, but yeah, for whatever reason, it triggers an instant level of frustration with me.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's my unpopular opinion for this week. Matt, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to do this with us, and
absolutely,
always enjoy the conversation, man. We'll have to do it again. Even though
I'd love to.
This one's for sure gonna work this time. I'm positive.
This one's gonna work.
This one on lock.
We're gonna fucking do this again, though, and just good luck with everything. I'm so glad that the Kill Tony thing's been working out for you, and I'm stoked to see what projects you got coming. I keep up with you on Instagram all the time, so I'm excited for everything you got ahead of you, man. So good luck with everything, and thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate y'all.
Hell yeah, man. We'll talk soon.